I want to thank all of you for being here. With regard to the Chinese, I want to follow up on, we've talked about the stealing of the highest secrets in terms of our weapons system, but what about the 21 million people whose background check and personal information has been, of course, associated publicly with the Chinese, and the fact that we know that 5 million sets of fingerprints as well, leading to potential vulnerability for our citizens. And if you put that in the context of these other issues that we've raised, it seems to me, I looked very carefully, for example, Secretary Work, at some of the language you've been using. You gave a speech at the Royal United Services Institute in London. You said deterrence must be demonstrated to be effective. Secretary Clapper, in your prepared statement, you said the muted response by most victims to cyber attacks has created a permissive environment. So I'm trying to figure out, based on what you've said, how we're not in a permissive environment in light of what they've stolen on our weapon systems, but also this huge infringement on 21 million people in this country. And also, could you comment on the vulnerability of that data and where we are in terms of how it can be used against us?
First, that is an assessment of what was taken. We actually don't know in terms of specifics, but that's, I think, frames the magnitude of this theft. And it is potentially very serious, has very serious implications. First, close to home from the standpoint of the intelligence community and the potential for identifying people who may be under covered status, just one small example. And of course, it poses all kinds of potential, and unfortunately, this is a gift that's going to keep on giving for years. So it's a very serious situation. What we've tried to do is educate people what to look for and how to protect themselves, but again, this is a huge theft, and it has potentially damaging implications for lots of people in the intelligence community and lots of people in the Department of Defense and other employees of the government.
I think what you're hearing from some of us up here is just now, what are we going to do about it is the issue, as opposed to a shared agreement on generic principles with the Chinese. This is a pretty significant issue that is going to impact millions of Americans. I'm not hearing what we're going to do about it, but that may be a higher level decision going up to the President. But it seems to me, if we're going to talk about deterrence, if we don't follow up with action, and if you look at that combined with the testimony we heard last week about the artificial islands being built by the Chinese, and the fact that we won't even go within, I believe it's 12 nautical miles of those islands. If you put that all from the Chinese perspective, I think you think, we can pretty much do what we want to do because we haven't seen a response. Now, I'm not asking from all of you to answer that, because it probably needs to be answered by the President and his national security team. But it seems to me that they aren't seeing a response right now from us, and therefore we're going to continue to see bad behavior from the Chinese. Before I go, I have an important question on another topic, Secretary Work, and that is yesterday we heard public reports about a potential violation of the INF Treaty by the Russians, and that essentially Russia flight tested a new ground-launched cruise missile this month that U.S. intelligence agencies say further violates the 1987 INF Treaty. And of course, this is going back also to the reports as early as 2008 of the Russia conducting tests of another ground-launched cruise missile in potential violation of the INF Treaty that we've raised with them. And when Secretary Carter came before our committee on his confirmation, he listed 3 potential responses to these INF violations. So now we have the Russians violating the INF Treaty yet again. And I guess my question is, Secretary Carter rightly identified that we should respond either through missile defense, counterforce, or countervailing measures. What are we doing about it?
Senator, this is a longstanding issue that we have been discussing with the Russians. The system that you're talking about is in development. It has not been fielded yet. We have had different discussions with them on our perception of the violation of the INF, and they have come back. This is still in discussions, and we have not decided on any particular action at this point.
So are you saying that you don't think they violated the INF treaty?
We believe very strongly that they did.
That's what I thought. So what are we going to do about it? Because they're claiming that they haven't, going back to the 2008 violations, and now here we have another situation.
It's still under, because they have not fielded the system, we are still in the midst of negotiating this position. We are giving ours, but if they do field a system that violates the INF, I would expect us to take one of the three options that Secretary Carter outlined before the committee.
So my time is up, but I see two consistent themes here, both with the Chinese and the Russian. A lot of talk, no action, unfortunately, and people take their cues from that, and that worries me. Thank you all.